Hey guys, how are you doing? I'm here again, and pay attention to this video, please, because now I'd like to share a video that I have a conversation with Aleksandra. And it's interesting because we compared the ability to speak English to drive a car. That's interesting because some people will say that they are uncomfortable when they are driving a car, but some of them are comfortable because they faced many challenges many times, and that's the importance here. It's important to know how many times have you practiced English, how many times have you faced challenges. Yeah, that's important. And it means if you are comfortable or not comfortable when you are speaking English. That's very interesting. Pay attention to this video and enjoy it.
I was reading about that, about fluency, and everything you are saying, I think it's connect to what I will say now. I'm going to say now is about the translating, right? Because we are talking here
Mhm.
about things that is important because and it's totally it's connect to our brain. I mean, translating, right? Fluency is is about a thing that when you are talking about some terms, some words, something, right? Um, and you have this what I'm doing now, right? I have I have some pause here because my brain is thinking what is the next? What is the next word? That's what I mean, right? And the
Mhm.
fluency is when you don't use translate or translator, right? You don't use that. It fluency is I was reading about that. Fluency when you are the words in the, I don't know is in your tongue. There is an expression, right? Portuguese expression that it's like you are prepared to pronounce this word, to use this word, no hesitation. Okay,
Mhm.
and translate is something like or no translator, right? Or fluency is like something that you are prepared to say immediately. That's what they
Mhm.
mean. Okay. For example, I saw this example. Some as the interviewer asked about, say, what's your name? Tell it. What is your name? And the answer was quickly, quick. Okay, because
Mhm.
what's your name is a thing that you heard a lot of times, 1 million times, right? But
Mhm.
when he asked about, all right, so, now ask me another thing. Ask me what I did yesterday. And the person in this case thought a little bit more because that's a thing that she doesn't use a lot. Like the what is your name? Ask me what is my name. Yeah, what is your name? It's quick,
Mhm.
but ask me now what I did yesterday. And she, okay, what? Okay, just a moment. What?
Mhm.
Okay, what did you do yesterday? And he said, you saw? You need to think more with this second question. But what's your name?
Mhm.
It's really simple, right?
Mhm.
Because there is some connect in your brain
Mhm.
and no hesitation. That's a fluency, right? That's
Mhm.
what I'd like to do.
It is important. And actually, I think that what you're describing is something that many students develop over the years. They develop what is called passive knowledge. When it's there is not enough active processing, but there is a lot of passive knowledge. It's when you hear native speakers, you might understand a lot, or when you read different resources, you might also understand. So you have a lot of passive knowledge. Like you can recognize it when you read it, even when you hear it. But like, for example, you can um let's say you can hear a phrase, okay, keep me in the loop. You may understand, right, this phrase perfectly. but you might not be able to respond and use that phrase when you need it.
Yeah.
And that's what we were working on with you last week when we had our class. You know, we were trying to develop your active processing. You know, when you hear it, when you hear some, you know, information, anything, understand it immediately, and then respond in real time. And for example, you know, when someone says, okay, let's put a pin in it and circle back tomorrow, and you might hear it, and, you know, you need to understand that right away, instantly, not
Yeah.
in 10 seconds later, especially at work, right? So those are two different skills that every student has to practice if they want, of course, if they want to improve their skills, and if they want to sound like a native, and if they want to become fluent. You've mentioned fluency here. Because during the interview, for example, or any interview, you know, you might understand the questions, you might process the meaning, and you should do it all at the same time. And then, of course, organize the answers and choose the right words and speak clearly. It's like learning to drive a car. When you're learning to drive a car, it feels like that's your passive knowledge. You cut, okay, I understand. Like, I have to shift the gear right now, and then I have to look at the, you know, rear mirror, and then I have to do this and that, and then, you know, there are so many stages.
Yeah.
And then the fluency is when you just get in the car and just, you know, start driving, and that's it. The same
Wow.
as with English.
That's my goal. That's my goal.
Then I have
Because,
another question. How many times? How many times have you shifted the gears, and how many times, like how many years have you learned to drive a car?
well, I have been driving a car. I have been driving a car for, let me see, if I'm 30 years, 38 years old, and I started with 18 when I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
That means 20 years, right? 20 years driving car. That's and
Mm-hmm.
the people will say that I'm not a driver, but it's not true. I am a really good driver because when I'm driving, that's a good example, actually, uh, Alexandra. Because when I'm driving a car, actually, I'm super comfortable. When I'm driving a
Mm-hmm.
car, for example, the middle of the road in São Paulo capital, that's really bad, the traffic, because there are
Mm-hmm.
1 million motorcycles and the cars together, and many people noise, and many people angry without patience, right? No patience, because they are going to the work, the office. I'm comfortable in that moment. I'm really comfortable because probably I am very used to drive in this that situation, and because I have good abilities to drive. And to be honest, right? Honestly, when I'm driving my car, I'm very comfortable. For me, it's not a problem. Other people, other cars, and I'm comfortable, and I can control all things that moment without no problem. That's what I would like to do in English, right? In some meetings about with the other people, with different situations, topic, right? That's the good example. I like it a lot.
Now I have another
Yeah.
question. How many years have you been studying English, or how many years have you been practicing or speaking English?
Speaking English, I have been speaking English for 80 years. It's a long time, right?
Um, 8 years?
8 years. Yeah, eight
Okay.
years.
Mm-hmm.
80,
Okay.
80 years. Yeah.
Okay. So like 80 is 80, eight, just eight,
80.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not, yeah, I'm not, yeah, I'm 38 years old. Yeah, exactly. Well, 80 years, 8 years. Sorry, sometimes I have problems with numbers. Depends on the number, right?
No, that's
80
okay. So
years,
8 years. 8
80,
years.
80 years. Yeah, I think. Yeah, eight, right? Eight. Eight? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
When I
Yeah, I'm
started
just
my English journey. Hmm.
I'm just
Okay.
referring to, now you can compare. How long does it take you to learn how to drive a car, and then actually driving a car and, you know, feeling comfortable and confident? With English, it's the same thing. you train, that's your skill. I mean, English is not my native language, okay? It's not my mother tongue. Therefore, I keep practicing all the time. I mean, that's something that I work on all the time, and that's what I encourage my students to do, to just, keep learning, keep practicing. And that's why we're using a lot of methods, there are a lot of good methods, and it's a matter of what your goal is, where you are now, or another way around, like where you are now and what your goal is, and how fast you want to reach that goal, and what are your skills at this point, because that's very important. We also should practice the four skills, which is listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And just think about a child who is born in the United States, for example, or in Canada, or it doesn't matter, in an English-speaking country. For the first 3 years, well, maybe 2.5 years of their life, they would just listen to their parents.
Yeah.
And they would imitate their parents' sounds. And then they would start repeating some, and then they would start, actually pronouncing the words. And then only then they go to school, right? And then they learn how to read, and only then they learn how to write, and only then they learn grammar. So then I want to ask you, that question, not you, but like I want to ask the question that, okay, how long does it take for me to learn or to become fluent? Well, it depends on, of course, where you are and what your goal is or what your goals are. But also, I also want to encourage you, and I want to say that just give yourself a little bit more time. And I would also encourage you to listen more, because that's another, by the way, we're kind of jumping a little bit, but that's another area that is so important to train, because we're used to learning through our eyes. But when we communicate with native speakers, especially when we hear different accents, we tend to hear them and we tend to speak with them. Like there is no time, there are no subtitles.
Yeah.
Maybe there are. Maybe I'm not aware of them, but
because of the technology, right?
Right, yeah. So maybe in the future we'll just have, glasses that we can just wear. As a matter of fact, speaking of the devil, another idiom, I think there are such glasses. I think I have heard of them. They have just, I think they exist, but I've just
Yeah.
seen them once and I'm not sure whether, but anyhow, yeah, just getting back to the subject. So yeah, I would encourage you to listen more. And also, I'm sure you've heard of that, method, such as, shadowing or a technique. A shadowing technique or a shadowing method is when you repeat after the speaker. So for example, if you want to practice, if you want to sound more like an American or a Canadian or a British person, or it doesn't matter, find a role model for you. For example, let's say I really like Julia Roberts, and I also like Jennifer Aniston, and I like watching the movies, and I like to listen to, let's say, Jennifer Aniston, right? And then you would just watch her speaking and listen to what she's saying and trying to, repeat. And therefore you will develop, the rhythm, the pattern, the pronunciation, the speed. Therefore, I mean, I know it sounds like you should repeat, but yeah, that's the method. That's called shadowing. When we shadow another person, if we want to sound like them, I mean, not like them, we want to ultimately sound like we are, but at the first stage, that helps really. So, that really improves, that trains our rhythm, pronunciation, speed, and automaticity.
That's
That's
really
just
good.
one of the methods.